I learned very early that sometimes the path that's paved for you isn't necessarily the right one for you, and you might have to chart a new one. If I'm going to sing and sing well, gotta sing like Dame Julie Andrews, because there's nothing better. No one better.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to I'll Get the Tip podcast. Today, I am joined by my co-host extraordinaire, Krista Steele, and we are joined by an extraordinary woman, the talented Maya Post, who the list of things that she's accomplished so far in her life, in her young life, are almost too long to go through. I'll do my best, and Krista and I'll do our best in trying to hit all the points. But she is a worldwide performer, a Broadway performer, a producer, a Harvard graduate, a mother, and just an extraordinarily talented woman who is really into the theater and into art and into film in so many different ways. And I hope that today on our show, we'll be able to cover most of them. All right? So Krista, please start us off with Maya.
Okay, Maya, tell us about whenever you were a little girl, what sparked that desire to become an actress, a singer, and to move to New York City?
Okay. Well, it wouldn't be fair if I didn't credit my parents for how they raised me and the foundation that and environment that they raised me in. So I think it's only fair to say that I had a very varied education growing up, and it was split between my mother, who was a dancer and a dance teacher, and my father, who was a scientist and a marine biologist. So I had this cool juxtaposition of how to approach life through science and data and industry and research and then artistic expression and creative thinking. And so they provided this really interesting foundation education for me that allowed me to sort of blossom in these multitude of different areas. And so I was really interested always in just exploring the world through my dad's lens, and then how to express what I've learned through my mother's lens. So I always liked to research things. I liked to get creative and get curious and dig into, any interest that I had, be it piano or dance or just being out in nature. And that was such a great way to be raised and to be encouraged to look at the world. And so that's most important beyond anything else. I would say that's the biggest gift that I've ever received from my parents. And I want to always carry that forward. But it led me to having so many varied interests and exploring so many different things that I just never stopped. And so it took me, before I ended up going to New York, I actually studied at this performing arts high school called Pinellas County Center for the Arts at Gibbs High School. And actually, that could be an entire podcast in itself, because the people that went there and have gone off to do other things, in fact, from the area I'm from, there must have been something in the water, because when you look up Tampa Bay and the people that come from there, and every single different generation, you're just like, wow, them and them and them and them. I mean, it's actually wild. But it was a really, really, really great place to learn about the arts, specifically because in our first year, quite like my parents did with the foundation that they gave me, we had to cycle through, I can't even remember what the class was called, but in our freshman year, we had to go through every single area of the arts. So no matter what you were majoring in, and we all had majors. So if you were a theater major or an art major or a dance major, it didn't matter. You had to kind of take a class and expose yourself to every single different area and every single different art form and try it out. And so that also was it was a huge influence on me, because not only did it help me understand how one area of art can influence another, but it also allowed me to see behind the scenes, for example, in stagecraft and when you're performing in theater, what actually makes it possible, like building the sets and making the costumes. So my interest expanded outwards even during that time. And I remember even having made, this is going to sound crazy, but we did a production of the musical called The Civil War. And that same year, we also did Our Town. And although I was the lead, I played Emily in Our Town, I also made my costume because I took this elective class of stagecraft and costume design and sewing, and I made that. And this isn't like, oh, just put things together and like wear that. Like it was intricate. We made corsets. Like the education I received was phenomenal. And I wish I could take a moment and acknowledge every single one of those teachers that helped to do that in the same way that my parents also gave me that foundation because they deserve it. But all that led me to New York. And I remember towards the end of my high school era, I was feeling like something was missing and I needed to figure out how to move forward. And there didn't seem to be the perfect path. Although like we had gone out, we had auditioned, the group of kids that I had graduated with, we had auditioned for many different schools and nothing seemed quite right for me. So this was also important because I learned very early that sometimes the path that's paved for you isn't necessarily the right one for you, and you might have to chart a new one. And that's what I learned then. So I didn't actually go to New York right after graduating. I took a year off because all the different programs didn't seem quite right for me. And my mother gave me the best advice. She said, that means just chart your own path, take time off, figure out what it is that you really want to do. Backed by my father's data-driven mind, and he said, and research mind, the good old scientist that he is, and he said, look at the people who have done something like you want to do, or who you respect the work that they're doing. Look at how they trained, look at what they did, and take elements of that and apply it to what you want to do and how to move forward. Really, really, really great advice that I still haven't forgotten. And that ended up leading me to New York, but only after taking a gap year and studying voice privately in the area where I grew up so that I could then eventually go to New York and where I studied classical voice in order to sound like Julie Andrews, because that was the only way forward for me. I was like, if I'm going to sing and sing well, got to sing like Dame Julie Andrews because there's nothing better, no one better. And so that's exactly what I did. And that eventually took me to New York, where I studied classical voice at Manhattan School of Music. And I ended up not staying there very long because a year and a half into school, I broke the rules. Not something that either of my parents would have encouraged me to do. But a friend of mine had told me that there was an open call for West Side Story, which I was really enamored with at the time, and really, really, really wanted to sing the role of Maria. And so I was like, well, this will help me scratch that itch. I'll just go to the audition. No one will know. And it was, the open call was on February 14th it must have been 2008. And I went just to kind of get the experience and to see, oh, well, what would auditioning feel like? And also, I just want to sing this music. I just want to feel like I'm Maria. And that open call led to a callback, which led to me booking the job, which took me to the West End in London. And that production got us an Olivier nomination for Best Revival. And who knew? The audacity. Also, I should mention, there was a rule in our school that you weren't actually supposed to audition for anything outside of school. It's a very naughty thing to do. But, I guess in some cases, you've got to chart your own path. Maybe take a few risks. I don't regret it.
When did you discover you had a voice, a velvet voice? I mean, I saw your performance with the Pops. Again, I would love for you to talk about that because just the combination of you and the Boston Pops is unbelievable. But where does it come from? My God, you have a wonderful voice.
Thank you. I will be the first to tell you that growing up, I couldn't really sing. I don't necessarily, I know I can feel, how can I explain this? I can feel music. And because I grew up dancing, I started with ballet. And I could feel music in my body and I could feel it in my soul, as anyone who is involved in music will say, like you feel it first in your soul and then it comes out of you. But the skill of singing, I wouldn't say it was inherent for me. I think it was learned. I think I practiced and I listened and I felt again, I felt it in my body. So then I figured out new ways to apply that to my voice and I learned how to sing. So it's not always a born gift. And if it is, I had to figure out how to use it. I had to find it. So yeah, if you want to do something, just learn, figure it out. Use different things that make sense to you, like sensory or I don't know. And then maybe it'll lead you to you thinking and then knowing that you could do anything. It was learned for me.
So tell us about your connection to Broadway. How often do you go? How many people do you know in the shows? Tell us about your producing plans for next year.
Oh God. Okay. Broadway. I first saw a Broadway show when I was in high school, so that was my introduction to Broadway. Apart from growing up with movie musicals, which really were my that was my first introduction into Broadway or what would be Broadway for me. Growing up with Singing in the Rain and West Side Story and I mean Carousel, I mean the works. I mean even plays, not that I was watching Streetcar Named Desire when I was a child, but I grew up to do that. And Shakespeare. We talked about this on the podcast with Jason Ma as well. I grew up loving Shakespeare, really unusual child. I loved the Romeo and Juliet that was directed by Zeffirelli, like obsessed with it. I watched it over and over and over again. And then that led me again to loving theater in a really, really profound way. Also, my parents took me to the theater a lot as a child. So that helped. That helps greatly. But I first saw a Broadway show, I think when I was 16. In fact, I was saying this to someone else the other day. I think it was The Producers with Nathan Lane and Matthew Broderick, which is really funny because now I am going to be a producer on Broadway. And actually, I think that's really quite charming. That hadn't occurred to me. But I saw a few things that really brought the magic of what I was studying in that performing arts high school. It really brought it to life and how grand and how special and how well directed, how tight a production can be and how inspiring it can be. So I couldn't help but be attracted to it and to feel like I found my family. And I have, and now, like you said, who do I know? Who don't I know? I mean, there's plenty of people I don't know, but yeah, in almost any production, I either know, a producer, whether it's a lead producer or someone co-producing on it, or I've got two friends in Fear of 13 right now, Ephraim Sykes, who also from the Tampa Bay area. In fact, my mom was his dance teacher. I mean, what a community. But Ephraim's amazing, and he's had an incredible career of his own, and he's now starring in that. And Ben Thompson, who's also in Fear of 13 with him. I have friends who are playwrights. I'm very lucky to know Moises Kaufman, who's one of the most prolific directors and writers alive today, in my opinion. Martina, who's written Cost of Living, and my God, she's my age and has already won a Pulitzer. I mean, she's amazing. I say these things not, I realized I was like, oh God, you sound like you're name dropping, but actually like I'm just in awe of my friends and the people I know and the community that I'm a part of. And it's just, I speak more from a deep reverence and respect for what they're doing and how I believe they're helping to change the world through the work that they're doing. So I think oh God, it's just the best. I love being a part of Broadway and film, and it's amazing what art can do, isn't it? It's so amazing.
You, I would be remiss if I didn't let our audience know that in between Broadway producing films, singing all over the world, you took time out and went to a little school called Harvard, and you got a degree, and you were in the top 10 of your class in psychology. Tell us a little bit about that pivot.
Well, I it, I can piggyback off of the Boston Pops thing. So towards the end of my let's call it a decade-long career of performing, I was asked to sing to be a soloist in the Boston Pops Bernstein Centennial Celebration, where I got to sing Somewhere. And it's still one of the greatest honors of my life that I've ever had, singing that song to celebrate one of the greatest living, well, non-living composers. Sorry. One of the greatest composers who lived and was a part of American culture and music. And then shortly after, I discovered I was pregnant. To which I said, great, I'm going to start my family. I'm going to have my first child. Amazing. And then, great, I'll do that and I'll get right back to auditioning and performing. And I had this idea that when he was 6 months old that I would do that. Well, almost bang on at 6 months, the pandemic started. And so, being a new mother, that's already an enormous change. And I wouldn't say that it wasn't a negative one. It was one of the most amazing things that had ever happened to me. And here was this amazing human that I created that was just flipping my world upside down in the best of ways. But I think it's important that even when you become a mother, that your identity isn't all wrapped up in being a mother. You still are the person that you were before. You're just ever growing and changing. And so for me, finding a way back to who I am and what fulfills me, and allowing that to also be the guide for my son, who am I, and what are my values, and what do I invest in, what matters to me, how am I shaping the world that also shapes you. So it was really important to me that at 6 months that I was going to get back to that. And so when the pandemic happened and my entire industry shut down, and not just one, but two of them, both the Broadway, all the theatrical world, just doors closed, and rightly so. We need to make sure that people were safe, but also the same thing happened in the film world. Production halted, and no one knew what to expect. And so that kind of gave me a bit of an identity crisis, because I was already changing so much as becoming a mother. But then when I thought, that the world that fulfilled me is no longer available right now, what do I do? I didn't know what to do. And so what do you do when you're a bit lost? Luckily, I knew to talk to the people around me and say, I feel a bit lost right now. I don't know how to move forward. And one of my friends, and I will give her credit for this until the day I die, her name is Lauren Otto, and she went to Harvard. And when I was speaking to her about this, and I speak to her about anything, she's my soul sister, she said to me, well, why don't you take this time? Like, we know the last time there was a pandemic, it lasted about 3 years, 1918. If it's anything like that, you've got time on your hands. We've all got time on our hands. Why don't you go to school? Why don't you go back? You have all these ideas. You're not simply a performer. You want to write, you want to produce, you want to champion stories from the beginning. So why not get those skills? And I laughed because I thought she was ridiculous to suggest that I could go to Harvard. I was like, you're hilarious. You're insane. I'm not Harvard material. She said, well, maybe you are. And she charted out the way for me to pursue that. And so I tried. And then I found myself in class before I knew it. And let me be very honest. I had the most intense imposter syndrome you could ever imagine. And in every class, up until my very last semester, I thought, they're going to figure out I shouldn't be here. I don't belong here. I don't know. Like this is not, they're going to figure it out. And then in that last semester, finally, I think it finally sunk in that I was okay and I was in the right place. And it was time to actually start celebrating the accomplishments that I'd made whilst in school. And it changed my life. And I owe that to my beautiful friend Lauren, who believed in me before I did. So hooray for friendship. Hooray for collaboration. Hooray for those who don't place limits on what's possible.
It's such a good lesson. It's such a good lesson to teach everybody, old and that it's never too late, okay, to redirect and to put your energies into other things. I mean, to come from being a performer to graduating from Harvard to then coming back and being a producer, a singer. Oh, and by the way, what I'd like to talk to you about is next year you are co-producing a Broadway play. And I hope I didn't steal Krista's thunder here, but can you please tell us a little bit about? I'm a Mets fan, and you're producing Damn Yankees, so it's very. Oh,
Well,
please
here's
tell.
the thing. Anyone can enjoy damn Yankees because whether you're a Yankees fan or not, the whole thing is about the rivalry and being like, ah, those damn Yankees. I gotta beat that team. So actually, it's very inclusive. Anyone can love it. And it's so good. Firstly, the music is so phenomenal. The story's heartwarming. I think it's the most uniting possible musical of late. I mean, we live in such a divisive time, and to have something that unites even the baseball world, the sports world, and Broadway, it's going to be so unbelievably iconic, specifically for New York City. I think it's going to be so much fun, and I think audiences are going to. It's going to be a version of it they've never seen before, and I think they're just going to have the best time. It's going to be so much fun.
Can you tell us a little bit about behind the scenes in the show, or is it too early?
I think it's probably too early because well, what I can say is there was an out of town trial run at Arena Stage in Washington D.C. that went very well. 5-star reviews, starting Jordan Donica, who's a Tony nominated performer and also was featured in the Gilded Age, as well as I mean the cast was extraordinary, and the cast that will be in the Broadway show will also be extraordinary. I can't talk about that yet. I'm so sorry. It hasn't been announced, but it's wonderful. And I think audiences are going to have so much fun. So yes, spring of 2027 coming to New York.
So tell us about the Stephen Sondheim podcast that you're involved with, please.
It is the most wonderful, heartfelt labor of love done by my friend Martin Milnes and his friend Peter E. Jones, who both knew Sondheim very, very well. So Peter was Sondheim's love of his life. They were together for, I believe, 15 years, and Peter is also his archivist. And Martin was Sondheim's friend in the last few years of his life, I believe the last 6 years. And together, after Steve died, they were sharing stories of how much they loved him and just thought, oh, wouldn't it be great to open this up and share this with the world, and we can bring on other people who also feel the same way, who have those close relationships or had that close relationship with Steve. And what a beautiful collective way to remember and uphold this titan in this industry, but more importantly, to remember their friend. And it's such a beautiful, intimate love letter to this person who just moved them deeply in their lives. And my part in it is so small. It's so small. I did some voiceover work for them, so I actually returned to performing as a favor to my great friend Martin. But again, it was for me, and this is one of those situations where it's like no small parts, and it's an act of service to this greater message and this wonderful, wonderful endeavor where we're honoring the Titan Steve Sondheim.
Can you tell us where to find it?
It's everywhere. So it's called Loving You, The Untold Story of Stephen Sondheim. And it's found everywhere. Apple Podcast, Spotify. I mean, anywhere where there's podcast, it's available. You can find it if you want it on social media. I believe it's at Loving You on Instagram. That's a very good question. It's easy to find. Type in Loving You, you'll find it. Loving You, Stephen Sondheim, it'll pop up. But it's fantastic. And it's featuring legends within the industry. Dame Julie Andrews, which I'm sure you can imagine I was like, that's so exciting. To be a part of anything that she's a part of was mind-blowing to me. She was a part of it. Patti LuPone, Dame Judi Dench, Lin-Manuel Miranda, Maltby and Shire, James Lapine. I mean, everyone came to the table and shared the most wonderful stories. Oh, Mia Farrow, Ronan Farrow. I mean, they're all in it, and they share the most heartfelt tributes and personal stories of their friends, and it helps for us to see as well how amazing of a man he was, not just an artist. And that's important, I think, because often we sort of sequester these icons in this untouchable realm, and they're just people, amazing, amazing people, but they're humans. And I think it's important to actually humanize these great artists, because not only does it allow us to treat them, I think, even with greater reverence and respect, not treating them like a god, but rather this incredible human that did these incredible things. But also, it allows for people to see their own path towards greatness in whatever they want to achieve. And I think that what Peter and Martin have done in that respect is amazing. And I think Steve would be, I think you'd be so proud and honored, because mentorship was very important to him. Education was very important to him, and inspiring people. It's clear, like, I mean, the amount of people's lives that he touched, and the generosity of information and wealth of information that he very generously handed over. I mean, so many lives were touched and changed, and I think they're only helping to continue that in the legacy of telling his story and doing it through this podcast. So for me, having any role in that, again, talk about like Boston Pops level, like an honor of my life, a true honor of my life.
I mean, when you think about somebody like Sondheim and the work that he created, it's timeless. And when I think about generations from now, okay, no matter what's going on with AI or whatever's going on in the world, that music is the foundation, okay? And it talks about generations, and it talks about people in a way that you can't repeat. To me, it's extraordinary because it's a legacy and it will last forever. And that's why he's so special, and so few people are like him.
He's one of a kind.
I have one question that we didn't touch on that I'd like to ask Maya. What's it like to be a mom?
What's it like to be a mom?
Yeah. You're a performer, you're a producer, you're a writer, you're a singer. There's not much that you haven't done in the world of art. Let's talk about being a mom. How difficult or easy was that for you to do? Or is it easy to do?
it was the scariest thing to consider doing. And then once I did it, I have a really, really, really weird answer for this. And this is going to be so niche. But when I was growing up, there was a TV show called Legends of the Hidden Temple. And it was a show for kids on Nickelodeon where it was basically like an obstacle course. And some people made it all the way through, some people didn't, but it was a lot of fun along the way. And I feel, for whatever reason, that's what's coming to mind. That's what being a mom's like. There's so many obstacles and so many things that can just completely derail you, knock you off your course, whatever, along the way. But it's so much fun. It's so much fun. And I don't know if that's just because my son Kit is just the best. I mean, obviously every parent's biased, but he's just so kind and sweet and thoughtful and weirdly philosophical. Like I get feedback from his teachers about that too, and I'm like, yeah, it's true. He does say some pretty profound things, and I'm like, wow, where'd that come from? But it's fun, and it doesn't mean that it's not difficult, and it doesn't mean that you're not challenged. So it's like being on an obstacle course, but a really fun one. And another thing, I was saying this to another mom friend who's also a producer. I had sent her something on Instagram about how you continuously fall in love with every new version of a person that your child becomes, like, a baby or a toddler or now like a child. And it's funny, we were having this conversation where it's like, yes, this is true. You do fall in love with that new version, as well as missing like those early days of snuggling with your infant. And it's such a beautiful, complicated thing that makes you think about time in a completely different way and value it in a completely different way. And I think my biggest takeaway from becoming a mother is it's changed what time means to me. And I value it, and it terrifies me, and I respect it more. Oh, but it's the greatest. So it's like being on Legends of the Hidden Temple, just running around, just getting knocked off, and always just pursuing, I don't know, the goal. But the goal in this is just raising a great human and enjoying life along the way and just being happy.
Well, you have done an amazing job, Maya, and we're not surprised. I know Krista and I certainly expected and received the highest from you. And all I can say is I look forward to seeing you on the screen and coming to your theater and seeing your production next year of Damn Yankees. I'm going to wear my Mets hat. I'm sorry. No, I won't. But anyway, I really do thank you so much for your time, and look forward to working with you, hopefully in the future on some project. And Krista, I can only thank you so much for bringing Maya to introduce me to Maya, and to Jason Ma, who is another brilliant talent. And you're awesome at what you do, Krista, so thank you so much. Both of you ladies are extraordinary.
We're proud to be sponsored by Litchfield Distillery. They like to call themselves Batchers in honor of the early farmers of Northwest Connecticut, a region known for its ample yield of wheat, corn, and barley. Growing these crops in the rocky terrain requires grit and determination. For the past decade, Litchfield Distillery has been busy distilling Litchfield County's best harvest into fine craft spirits, one batch at a time. Litchfield Distillery, the spirit of hard work.